Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Remember me?
Sound is good, video good.
Awesome. Well, first I want to say, as the newly anointed premier of Town State Leisure.
Oh, God. You mean the clothier?
The clothier, yeah. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go over to Massively and check out the article about us.
Here, I'll grab the link.
Yeah, thanks. Something really funny happened yesterday after our press release. And, well, you know, us being us, we kind of embraced it and ran with it. And so I sent the link that Bree used to engage in, let's see, how to scrape while thinking in boisterous jocularity while viewing a proclamation about Town State Leisure that led to a story. So head over there, you'll get the joke. It's really funny. If you haven't read the article yet, go to the end of the comment section. There was a very astute point brought up by one of the posters there about how if you want not to give these guys any money, nor have any concerns about, you know, where, you know, their site might be pointing, since it's a scraper site, that you have a way to avoid all that. So, bottom of the forum comments. Sorry, of the article comments. So, yesterday, I don't even know why I'm bothering to look at the top 10-ish right now. So, yesterday, big announcement from CSE. Hopefully, everybody who's, certainly in our stream right now or who are our backers have heard about it. But if you haven't, I'll reiterate. So, yesterday we announced that we have received, that we have signed a $7.5 million investment deal for City State Entertainment. This deal is going to allow us to do a bunch of things, most importantly for all of our backers and potentially future backers, to accelerate the development of Camelot Unchained. That is our number one, number two, and number three reason for the investment. There are other things that we hope to do with some of the money, but the major focus, again, 1, 2, and 3, is to speed up, to accelerate, to make the whole beta process better for Camelot Unchained. So please, if you haven't yet read about it, go to our website. Go to the links that Max may be putting up as well now. Sure. To the various articles that have been written about us. You'll find articles that are still up. Well, one actually went up today, so of course it's still up. From Eurogamer. Other, sites include Games Industry, GamesBeat, Massively, MMORPG, Gamma Sutra, and others. So, check it out. Lots of good stuff there. Also, we have 3 live streams from yesterday. So that is also worth, certainly at least one of them, worth listening to. And by the way, to all of our backers who were there yesterday and asked questions, one of the guys from GF Capital was actually in our sessions and commented on the quality of the questions. He was like, let's see, his exact words were it was in the stream, saw 2 of the streams and listened to everyone's questions. You have a very smart group of backers. Now, somebody who was in the stream, who I didn't know, was my sister. And she's, obviously one of the board seats and also one of the investors. And she was trying to get my attention. And apparently Max was paying absolute... Surprise, Max, I didn't tell you about this yet.
No, you didn't.
Was paying absolutely no attention to her.
Where's that bus hitting?
Yeah, so look, she was very upset with Max. She was very upset, with me. how could you ignore me? Blah blah blah. And so, Max, sorry, you're fired.
Oh God.
No, she was in the stream, but she wasn't the least bit upset. She was texting me afterwards going, I tried to message you during the stream. So I was like, yeah, no. So she was there, and she loved it. She loved hearing what you folks had to say as well. Lots of nothing but very positive, statements from the folks at GF and my sister about you backers. So that's great. I mean, it's not very often that backers get to be appreciated for the depths of their knowledge in terms of questions. But you folks who were there yesterday, a lot of you, again, got their attention. So thank you for that. Okay, let's go to the top 13. Number 1, of course, is City State Entertainment. Land $7.5 million investment deal. So for those who've seen my streams in the last 6 months, or certainly in the last 2 months, and some of you who have also commented that I seemed rather stressed at times, or certainly a bit tired, well, now you know why. It's taken an enormous amount of time out of my life to get this deal across this finish line. Sorry for the trope, but it kind of fits. Lots of talking, negotiation, cajoling, convincing, spreadsheets, more spreadsheets, even more spreadsheets. But now it's done. It's a huge, huge, major, gigantic, ginormous win for the studio and for the backers. For one reason, even though the money, which is a very good a very good investment, in the scheme of things, it's not just that, because obviously companies have gotten a lot more. I did certainly back after Dark Age of Camelot was successful. But the timing of the money and the amount of the money is so important to us, because right now, thanks to it, you're going to see us go on hiring, not a binge, but we're going to try to binge a little to bring in people, whether whether the 3 people who started this month, obviously the new animator, new community manager, and the new producer, but we're also hoping to bring in up to 6 new programmers, CS person, and a whole bunch of other job recs. So that's why it's so important. With these additional staffing that I could not do otherwise, we would not be able to sit here, I would not be able to sit here, and say it is our plan to speed up the game's development, and we certainly want to get it out in 2019. But the other win for you folks now is that over the course of not only the next few months, but beta as well, we will be able to hire more people who, if they are up to speed by the time beta begins, you will have a better beta experience, because we'll have more people who can work on things. We can iterate faster, therefore, on features, but also iterate on bugs faster. So it's a total win for you backers. It's a total win for the studio. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a tech item, engine gameplay system improvements. So you heard us talk about this last week. We had a bunch, lots of code hit the hit all at the same time. This has, resulted in the expected issues. It always does when we do a big code dump. But overall, really positive. Exactly what we expected that it would do. And so this is going to make a big difference going forward, especially as some of the other new stuff that's hit the code has been things that are related to the Saturday night sieges. And as we continue to iterate, for example, probably the best way to put it would be making the first Saturday night siege match setup took, X amount of hours. The second took a little less. By the time we get to the third, we're continuing to refine what we need, how we do things in order to speed up the delivery of the scenarios, to speed the delivery of other things as well. So, a little bit of pain over this week, and probably next week, well, certainly next week as well, leading to a very good outcome. Number 3, another tech item, generic editor. So, Bull has done a great job on that. So now we have essentially a very generic editor that can be more easily, or can be certainly more easily customized to do whatever, hopefully, our new tools guy that we're trying to hire kind of aggressively will be able to come in and speed up his ability to work on tools. So we're kind of excited about that as well. Tech item number 4, new entity types. So this is part of what I was talking about earlier as well, in terms of building out the various scenarios for Saturday Night Sieges. So Caleb has finished the first pass of the new spawn point entities, and it's good now that that's done. It'll be easier when we need even more spawn point entities. Number 5, unifying TCP and UDP entity networking systems. So, UDP sockets and TCP are packets, are two of the most commonly heard bits from us regarding our communications. Without going into a lot of detail, UDP packets, fire and forget, TCP packets, and TCP connections are direct connection between clients and servers. Both are very important, have been important since the MUDs in terms of making the games go, making massively multiplayer games go. This was true at Mythic, this is true at AUSI, this is true with all of us. While the changes that Colin has made should be in soon, and it's going to allow us once again to make it easier going forward with future changes, which is great. Number 6, another tech item, 3D UI and input performance improvements. So we've been talking about this for a while. It's Dave's stuff like with floating numbers and other things. So that's in and working quite nicely. So it's still a work in progress, but off to a really good start. Number 7, another tech item, WebSocket server and implementing GraphQL. So this has been something that JB has been working on to get GraphQL working over WebSockets. So this allows real-time updating of data that's pushed from our API server down to the clients. So, all part of giving you a better game. Or giving you a game, sorry. Number 8, another tech item, standalone NPC servers. So this is not terribly exciting, at least it doesn't sound it, but it's kind of useful for us. So it allows us, a number of months ago we talked about the difference between NPCs and our bots and our ARCs. So this obviously is based on NPCs, and it lets us more easily test all the issues, or a lot of issues relating to AI, scalability, etc. So that's gone in. It is still a work in progress. Number 9, Tech Plus Art for the Patcher. So James and AJ have been iterating on transitions and animations to play when hovering in the new Patcher interface. So we cleaned up a bunch of old Patcher code, which we also increased the stability and performance of the Patcher. Number 10, from the art folks, new weapons. So John completed the materials and LODs on all his new weapons, and now it's up to Ben to actually add them to players' inventories. So next time we have a test, you should have some new weapons to play around with. Number 11, character creation renders. So apparently Sandra created a plethora, reading it right here, plethora of male and female class pose sketches this week. We chose the strongest of those, and we're going with them for our 9 Beta 1 classes. She has begun posing the rigs for handoff to John next week to do the renders. So this is going to replace all the very old renders and concept art in the patcher. Number 12, another odd item, patcher and scenario UI. So Michelle's finished up her work for the scenario UI elements, and now they're in James's hands to animate. So once again, something for the game, not tech related. Number 13, character assets in Maya. So Scott and Joe, of course, is our new senior animator, have been working to move all our assets that we use in Maya around to make it much more efficient to, quite frankly, of course, animate. So that's been happening, and as a matter of fact, the first one that they built was the new human male skeleton with a full armor body setup and animations, which was successfully imported from Maya. Next up, which is today, the female rig. Number 14, work in progress, new weapons and armor. So just so you know, Ben's XML refactor is in. So he's catching up on some of the art assets and bringing them into the game. So these items include an archer chest armor now includes realm-specific quivers. So look, it's a cosmetic item for now, and that's certainly going to be replaced down the road, but certainly useful. John's new weapons have been added. And then the focus items, which will pair up with Scott's initial animations for the casters. Number 14, Beta 1 planning. So that's the big one. You know, that I think and the first one are probably the two most important changes that you folks are certainly should be excited about. The new producer has landed, hasn't run screaming into the night yet. That's why I said yet, and has been working with the teams towards getting a Beta 1 date, organizing us a bit better, and really helping us, get ready for Beta 1 and get ready for the announcement of Beta 1. So expect more next week, and we'll see where we're at by the end of that week, and I'll talk to you about it right now next Friday. So we're very excited. He's been a great addition to the teams. He's fit in really nicely, and like I said, he hasn't gone screaming into the woods yet. And that won't be too hard because actually we're not too far from the woods, if I remember where the office is. So, we might have to make sure that he's got a ball and chain or some kind of restraining device so he doesn't go screaming into the woods. We like the guy. Hope he sticks around. So that's it. Let's get to the Q&A, guys and gals.
All right. Give us your questions from Mark. And we'll see if we have some A's. Udovic says, Medic asks, what, if any, mechanics will there be to balance realm populations in the different regions on a CU server?
On the different regions? I'm not sure he means regions.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So in terms of balancing realm population, look, this is something we've talked about since the beginning of the Kickstarter. We have to be clever. We have to be a bit more original than we were in the past, both at Mythic. Not ready to talk about anything in specific, but the bottom line is we have to find ways of encouraging people without forcing them to when they come in, not to simply go to the most populated realm right from the get-go, and also not to not want to play when the realms are unbalanced, because you'll never have balance in a game like this in terms of realm population. You just won't. Maybe, okay, let me take that back. Other than when the game first opens and everyone just jumps in right away, then other than that time, you're never going to have the exact same population. So, that's one of the things that we will worry about further down the road. But we're going to be clever, and as you've seen from us in the past, we're certainly willing to take chances on things. But it's so important. If you can't force people to go, which we can't, and the encouragements of the carrot are not strong enough, then we still have to make sure that the folks who are, in the underpopulated realms can have fun and can benefit. And we've been really clear about that, and that's not going to change.
Lily Ora asks, how much customization will there be for our characters in terms of how they look? Hair and eye, hairstyle, body shape, etc., if any.
There'll be some. The real question is how far we can go without sacrificing frame rate, and as well as not wasting or spending a lot of artists' time. And that's an ongoing thing. I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, that we're in the process of improving the look of our models, of giving the artists more tries to work with in regards to what their budget is. So that's an ongoing thing, and the more that we can do, the happier, because we're all for it. It's just a question of not sacrificing performance, especially for something that most people won't even see or notice during a fight.
Jeff on the YouTube chat for the new producer suggests put a GPS tracker on him.
Yeah, how do you know we haven't?
Sacrix asks, what are builders and crafters going to be doing in SNS/scenarios?
Depends on the SNS. And some of them, they won't be doing anything, I mean, quite frankly. They're not all the scenarios, certainly, are intended to have crafting as a meaningful bit. On the other hand, we want to have crafter, you don't want to say crafter-only scenarios, but essentially scenarios that are geared to the crafters. So we hope to have a combination of all that. So sometimes there will be no use for crafters to come in. Other times it will be about crafters. And then hopefully some other times crafters will be useful. Crafters and builders will be useful. But we're not trying to make the scenarios one class fits all, because that just doesn't work. We're very happy to say on any given night that certain scenarios are going to be geared to certain classes or certain class combinations as well.
Odilvik says, Druge asks, Realm Honor, is it experience or currency or both? Can you share any simple examples yet about what a player would do with Realm Honor?
Nothing more than we've already said, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that right now. But we do expect it to be both a currency and experience, so that depending on how you're doing with your realm, the king will reward you for that. And sometimes there'll be rewards which can be used for other things or for specific things.
CSE Tim asks, when can we expect to see TSL swag?
Yeah, go over to the MOP folks again and go take a look at that. I'm all for it. I think we should embrace it, have some fun with it. As Bree reported, we grabbed the domain name yesterday, so I'm sure we're going to put out at least one, funny thing from, the cafe press kind of thing. Print on demand shirts or campaign shirts for the folks who want to, share in the laugh with us.
Sacrix wants to know if there's anything you can share on backer rewards or second announcement.
Yes. There you go.
All right then.
Well, it actually fits because the question is answered. He answered his own question, which is why yes.
Okay then.
See, now you got it.
Yeah, no, yeah. I got it.
Yeah.
Valiant Kale asks, how's the Discord chat coming along?
Oh, we haven't done anything, on it for a while. As soon as we can, we would very much like to incorporate Discord. Also on things that actually is not on there yet, but we're working towards it, so it should have been on there. That's my bad, not anyone else's. It just got lost in all the other things that I was doing. A lot of you backers over the years have asked, especially you folks in Europe, for other payment options other than PayPal. So we are very much working towards that. I can't imagine by the opening of Beta 1, we won't have a whole multitude of options for you folks. I just had a meeting about that, and I think we're agreed that we have to go into contract negotiations. But we certainly hope to have a plethora. That'll be the word of the day. A plethora of options for backers. You folks have asked for it. We just haven't had the time to do it.
Odelvik says, Medic asks, is a stretch goal to get all 30 classes in the game at launch something you would consider doing?
I have a plethora of reasons why not. So, no, we won't be doing something like that. That sort of stretch goal, even if I was crazy enough to want to put it up, would end up delaying the game. It just would. Classes, unlike races, are a big deal in order to balance, in order to get ready for launch. Could it happen, on its own? It's certainly possible, but I certainly wouldn't count on it, and I would never put a stretch goal for it, simply because I don't want to do anything that could slow down the launch of the game.
Yozaro asks, I think the announcement made MJ look several years younger. How much does it affect you outside work?
A lot. I mean, like I said yesterday, the hours I've been putting in have been crazy. Certainly the last 2+ months, other than one weekend, I've worked all weekends. I don't keep track of the hours I put in, but since you folks have seen me on the forums at times before I get to the office, and then at 1 or 2 in the morning, and you guys and gals saw me live streaming during the Christmas break, you can just imagine the total number of hours I put in a week. And that's certainly, no matter what age you are, that can take a toll. Certainly in my case, I've always been an hours guy anyway, so fortunately I was prepared for it. But the combination of the hours certainly, and the additional stress and the negotiations, and as these guys here know, I had to do most of almost all the heavy lifting myself. Back at Mythic, certainly when we did the EA deal, I had the wonderful Mark Gagne on the finance side, as well as the help of other people to do what I needed to do. In this case, that's not what anyone else here does. It's not Andrew's job or Tyler's job or Tim or any of the other folks to be able to do the the stuff that I have to do. So not having to do all that, knowing that we've received an infusion of capital and a deal which has just put us in a wonderful position, has made me feel a lot more relaxed, certainly. And I don't want to say, hey, I'm feeling so good, I'm not going to go on vacation in February, because I think Lady J, as well as some people here, would be like, just get the hell out, Mark. You must go. But I certainly feel better in terms of those sorts of things today than I have in many, many months. Because while the last 2.5 months, were difficult, this is part of what has been a much longer process. And so I cannot even tell you how much I am looking forward to getting to actually play game designer, again, and not have to say, look, no, I just don't have, the spare bandwidth or time to get stuff done. So I am really excited about the coming weeks, then the coming months, and the year, frankly, far more than I've been in years.
Odelvik says, Druge asks, have you decided yet where to go on vacation?
No, I've barely looked. put it this way, I other than a few spare hours doing things that I just need to do to distract myself, I really haven't spent a lot of time doing almost anything else. So the only thing I'm going to be looking for is, if possible, warm, and then somewhere where I don't have a lot of decisions to make, where I can just chill out or chillax and not have to worry about things.
Sacrix asks, with the 2019 slated release here, does that take into account a decent balance and none broken stuff before going into live learning from war and not fixing things in first 3 months?
Oh, well, first of all, war did fix things in the first 3 months, Sacrix. You know that. We did launch in a state that I did not realize we were in. You saw that, as a matter of fact, by how quickly we shifted into, heavy-duty bug-fixing mode. Now, during those 3 months, that meant other things weren't fixed, but we did, try to get things done, fairly quickly. But it's always resources. In terms of how we're going to launch, well, we're certainly not going to launch with nothing broken. No game does. It's impossible. Anything this complex, there's always going to be something broken. I've never seen a game launch, an MMO, launch without something broken. Now, the important question, though, in all that is, are we willing to take the time to, during beta, be sure that we're not rushing the game out? The answer is yes. That's part of what the money is for. I've said this on the forums as well, is, look, with this amount of money, as well as additional money that should be coming in, as it has, we've got a lot more runway than, just 2019. So, we want to do it right. We definitely want to not rush the game out. But absolutely that there is zero chance of any MMO this complex, without even going to the more complex ones, that nothing is broken.
Arngram asks, will there be an alpha test this weekend?
I doubt it. 99.9%. Like I said in the update, we landed a whole bunch of new and very important code, and now we are still sorting out some of the issues when that happens. But I haven't actually checked if we're doing one at 5 tonight, like we try to do every night. But we keep getting closer, and again, landing what we've just landed, that's a big deal for us. We've talked about it for weeks. It has to do with our main processing loop, our input loop. So this is big stuff for us. And overall, actually, so far so good. You always expect something bad to happen, but so far it hasn't been like, oh my God, this is awful, we'll be months fixing it. Nothing like that.
It's Z's has a comment that I think might have a good response. 2019 release is assuming they are able to hire people. It took years to get people. Unless they are offering obscene amounts of money, I'm not sure it will be that much faster.
Well, first of all, while we're not offering obscene amounts of money, I've told our recruiters that we certainly can be much more comparable than we have been in the past. And in terms of it taking years to get people, that was for Virginia. Don't forget that for Seattle, we grew fairly quickly. And it's going to be, we hope, the same thing now. I know our recruiters, and again, we're using multiple, recruiting firms, both for Virginia and for Seattle. They're very excited about the releases, the press release. They're excited about the stories. It all lends, greater credibility to the studio. And I can tell you for a fact that in the last 2 weeks, we've had, four senior programmers, one not senior programmer apply for positions. So that's pretty good for us. And now that the announcement went out, we expect that pace to pick up. So Ziz, I can't guarantee we'll land everyone we need within 6 months, but I can absolutely guarantee it won't take years to get some additional programmers. It just won't.
Brandon Logue on the YouTube chat says, or asks, when a house, keep, or castle gets raided, will any of the loot be safe, or is it all up for the taking?
Yes, no. I've certainly talked about some safety systems for people outside of the safe cities. How much you'll be able to save, how you'll be able to protect it, that's certainly to be determined. But no, part of being able to raid, essentially, and to pillage and to do all those fun things, you have to be able to get stuff from there. That's the whole point. If you can't both benefit and, take something from the victim, then, the game loses a bit of its meaning. So, yes, you'll be able to take lots of stuff, and players will also have certain things that they'll be able to protect. Because, to do total, hey, we can take everything, can be kind of depressing. And to be able to take nothing or have no effect at all upon the people you've raided also takes some of the fun and meaning out of it.
Odilvik asks, when will we see the next part of the 30-day doc?
I would like to say before I go on break, but most likely not. We've got other things that are more important to talk about, including the Beta 1 date. But let's just see where we're at. By the way, and I'm not leaving until all the announcements are made. So if it takes longer to get the correct date for Beta 1 or to get some other things done, I'll just go on break down the road. I'm not rushing my break to delay if it would delay the announcements. The announcements have to come first, and then I get to take a break.
Lodoween asks, if Saccharix agrees to join you, will you let Karen dip you in the whipped cream swimming pool?
No.
Foggy asks, do you think that this additional funding will reopen some doors on features and ideas that you may have otherwise shelved?
Good question. Maybe. But keep in mind that's a maybe for the extenders. Having this additional money means additional programmers as well as different additional artists. So there may be some things that now we can think about for an extender pack, because we have the team that can not only deliver it on the game and then also keep the game running once we launch, but then can find the time to do stuff for extenders. So I think the answer is yes. But not for launch. Sorry, my voice is starting to go. Yeah, Max is saying hydrate. I spoke a lot yesterday and have been spending a lot of time talking lately. So excuse me, I am definitely pretty dry and starting to get hoarse. Plus, I think I'm getting sick like everyone else.
By the way, folks, since some of you haven't been in a lot of these end-week wrap-up streams, those really specific mechanics questions about combat and stuff are generally better directed towards Ben, like on the forums or something. All right. Dark Society Network asks, as to not noticing body shapes, speaking from my experience with the few games that did allow a wide spectrum of body shape changes, it adds an amazing amount of additional flavor to have both skinny and very corpulent characters around you. Definitely on my wish list for CU. Maybe an extender pack?
Well, and the key is there, how far can you go, right? And I think that's something I could have been a little more specific on. If the changes are so obvious that you can notice them during a large-scale battle, that's one thing. But if changes that still could affect frame rate, but are not noticeable because of the armor, because of other issues as well, then it's not worthwhile. So I agree with you. Having very corpulent versus very thin could work, but the real question is, again, anything that we do, anything that affects frame rate is something that always has to be considered. It's less a question, in our case, of art. It's more of a question of performance. And, since these things do, depending on what it is, but most of them do, affect the frame rate, in a typical PvE game, not a big deal. Even a typical RVR game, also, or a PvP game, not a big deal. Large-scale battles, anything is a big deal. And so we have to be very careful with that.
Also, since there's about 250 of you, I'm not going to be able to ask every question as it's scrolling by real fast. So if you're a backer, you can ask on the forums or other stuff like that if we don't get to it today.
And we're going to be wrapping up at 5 today because my voice is absolutely going fast.
All right, so that's our 5-minute warning, folks. 5
No.
Oh, wait, I thought you said it in 5.
No, at 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
we're not going to run over.
My bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Still 20 minutes. All
correct.
Gibberlot asks, and a lot of people have been asking this. Hi, MJ and Max. Question. With release date of Beta 1 round the corner, will we be seeing more in-game video footage displaying the gameplay?
No. The video footage that we're going to release will be when we're further along. What you've seen in the game so far is certainly better than what we showed, at Dragon Con, which was better than we showed, the year before. But we're still not ready for a public release. We want to be, thanks Max, we want to be sure that we go out on the right, with the right video. As you've seen from our videos, they're kind of, unpretentious. We don't spend money producing them. We literally just, record what we're playing, and then Scott will spend some time editing them together into the larger, general DragonCon videos. So we want to make sure that the engine is performing as, well as possible, because we don't have other ways of enhancing the video so it looks better than it really does. We won't do that.
Squeaky Hero asks, are the remaining 2 big announcements coming next Friday, or are you going to put them out whenever you can?
Whenever we can. Certainly, I can't imagine the beta announcement will be next Friday. That would be, surprising. So it looks like it will be, still a shot that it could be before the end of the month. If not, it should be soon thereafter. But the most important thing is that it's the right date. I'm not going to rush a date out. And this is not something that's going to take months. One, because I can't imagine it would take months. I really can't. And 2, if it takes months, then we're screwed. We're in worse shape than anyone possibly imagined. So it won't take months. But we are taking weeks. We want to be sure that our producers had time to work with the team to work with him, and we can give you a rational date. Don't want to give you a smoke and mirrors date. That would be bad.
Big Pop 82 asks, in Daok, the combat was more smooth and paced, where in many modern MMOs now, it's more about super fast button mashing abilities. Do you feel like Unchained will be more akin to the old, new, or somewhere in between?
Certainly more to the old than to the new. We certainly don't want this to be a button mashing game. That's not what we're going for. That wasn't our intent. It isn't our intent, and it's not what we're going to do.
Nalapsy2A asks, what will be the first game of TSL? I would love a good, densely multi-competitor game like the Darkish Age of Camelot.
Yeah, we have to go on into design on that. It's going to take, a fairly long time to even put together a design document worthy, just worthy not only of Town State Leisure, but of the fantastic, version of Dean's story that site scraped together. Get it? Scraped together.
I got it.
Yeah, look for that in the far flung future.
Chewy Australia asks, or maybe it's Chewy. I'm not sure. Do you think balance will be an issue? I still play War, and my mates always complain that the opposite faction classes are better, and I feel in CU the classes are going to have a greater difference than War.
Yeah, they certainly will. Balance is always an issue. Anyone who says otherwise in an RVR game either is lying or is playing an OP character. So look, this is something that we know is going to be an issue. It was an issue with Dark Age, obviously an issue with War. It'll be an issue with us because we want a lot of classes, unmirrored classes. So, it's part of the fun and part of, as well, the suffering at times. But the key is to be responsive. The key is to make sure your metrics system is giving you the right information and reacting to it. You folks have seen us so far. You've seen me for, many decades. We're pretty quick to react and to be honest and, admit, our mistakes, our mea culpas. So I don't see that changing for, Camelot Unchained or for Darkish, Age of Camelot.
Gondux asks, is it possible to have not only large but also small group fights? For example, a group of 3 to 4 people versus another one of maybe 6 to 7.
Absolutely.
On the YouTube chat, Holger asks, could you say something about buff bots? I remember that I was forced to have 2 accounts to be competitive.
Yeah, this is something that I know I talked about in the foundational principles. We're not for buff bots. We're doing things to discourage them. You can never prevent somebody, really, from just having a buff bot. But if you've made it less than or suboptimal, if you can't just leave your buff bot parked in town and doing things, or doing things behind walls and things like that, it makes it, far harder to do it. But at the end of the day, if a person just wants to have 2 accounts and run one behind it and is sitting right there multi-boxing, with only 2, characters, there's nothing you can do. You really can't, because you can't say, well, you can't have 2 people coming from the same IP address, because that means parents can't play with their kids or sibs can't play together. So, there's nothing that logically, that we could even hope to do to prevent that. On the other hand, if you design the mechanics so that having a buff bot is no different than having an actual player who must be active and doing things and not just sitting back again behind walls, then you're going to discourage some of it. We've been very clear that multi-boxing in that sense of, hey, I want to have my own 8-man running around, is something we can, more easily do something about, depending on how smart, the person is who's trying to multi-box. But something, having, just 2, that's impossible to enforce. But again, totally different mechanics for our healing than a game like, Darkish Age.
That will never stop being funny.
It won't be, it won't be. And being a clothier, too, is just
right.
Perfect.
Gabbard asks, will you let alpha backers test the new Battleground before Beta 1, and when?
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. We want IT in as soon. IT has jumped in a few times. We want alphas in soon. We want Beta 1s in as soon as possible. We'll be letting, Beta 2s in as well, for tests. So, yeah, we want to get a whole lot of people involved, with the SNSs.
CC Matt is pointing out that Fubu Wu is asking the important questions. Fubu Wu is asking, did you have to wear a tie while meeting with GF Capital?
Oh my God, no. Again, I've known these guys. They're not, and they don't wear ties, either. It's not like they're that formal. for the typical meetings, at least meetings with me. Like I said, I've known these folks for a long time. We went to a Knick game and talked about stuff. They gave me one of their offices to sit in for a day and work on things. So, it's a great relationship, and it's a long-term relationship. Not that kind of formality.
Swazi says, sorry this was already asked, but is there any news on alphas getting into SNS?
I just said that. Wow, that's timing. Probably scroll. Same thing I just said a moment ago, Swazi. We want to get you guys in, as soon as possible. We're testing almost every day, and especially with all the new code that's landed. As soon as that's all good, we definitely want to start to get the alphas back in.
Critical Danny wants to know if crafters will be able to add flavor text to weapons and gear.
Crafters will definitely be able to add things to gear.
Shoybird asks, with the subscriptions, will they be done by each country or all based off of USD? This is the biggest issue, being the fluctuation in money makes the fee never the same.
Yeah, that's always an issue. You're absolutely right. And that's something we want to deal with. Honestly, I haven't given it any thought since the Kickstarter. We want to be fair, to our folks, no matter where they're from. I haven't seen a great solution. It's certainly something we can talk about, with our backers. If you use, one currency fits all, that can work out really well. It can also be a pain. On the other hand, if you adjust, per country or per region, that can also be a pain. So, yeah, we'll work out what's ever fair. The nice thing is that it's, shocking, 2018 now, and it's a lot different than it was in 2001. I think we'll certainly have something fair to all of our backers. That's what we're going to try to do. Whether we go down and break it down per country versus, again, per region. So for our Europeans, other than our UK folks, if we did everything in the euro, versus having any kind of separate currencies. But we'll see. Again, not an easy issue. Just not.
Odilvik asks, what's the story with your coffee cup? Is the text related to subscriptions or sandwiches? It says subs on it.
Oh, he said coffee. I wish this were actually, if there's coffee, I'd be probably bouncing off the moon right now. Jersey Mike's is fun. I didn't actually notice that. Subs and valuable support.
Yeah, I keep slashing the camera.
Wow. So this is actually, Jersey Mike's is supporting us apparently because they like our model. Subs meaning valuable support. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jersey Mike's, for believing in us this way. Very good catch. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I like that. Anila Gamir asks, in the event that the dishes or laundry lacks completion, would you rather have by your side to deal with, which would you rather have by your side to deal with Mrs. Jacobs? Fearbog or Yutnar?
Yutnar.
Deathwatch 101 asks, will we see hip quivers rather than back quivers?
Right now we have a combination of both, because we have, the back quivers for the arrows and sort of holsters for books and things. Whatever makes the most sense.
Tiersis TV asks, with this cash infusion, are you assessing developer and designer capacity against the backlog and measuring in that manner? Or is it just a goal to get butts in seats to burn down tasks?
Well, certainly a bit of both. the new producer is certainly looking at our backlog because that's kind of important, and looking at the number of programmers and the amount of time they have, because it's not just the number of programmers. Tim, who's obviously has been here for almost since the beginning as a programmer, has been lately doing a lot less programming things as we're trying to get the game running up on Google. And so we've actually lost some productivity for him in terms of programming, but that was necessary, is necessary to do. It's a little less necessary now in order to save the amount of money that we would be saving moving from AWS to Google. In terms of getting butts in seats, we're still going to be picky. One of the recruiters and I talked about that today. As eager as we are to get new people in the studio, we're not going to we're certainly not going to try to pick the wrong person. We're not going to rush. We're not going to just say, hey, you're a senior guy, we love your experience, come on in. You're still going to have to go through, the testing, still have to, meet us. We still have to believe that you're a good, fit. That could, hiring the wrong person or persons could end up screwing up our path to beta, even more so than not having enough butts in seats. A programmer, like an artist or designer or a company president, can actually do damage to a company if you hire the wrong one. And so we're not going to rush to fill the seats. We're going to be cautious. We're going to be careful, which is why we're not talking about speeding up Beta 1. Rather, we are talking about speeding up the live game, or the deployment of the live game, and having a richer beta because of the additional programmers. That is the most realistic outcome from the use of funds. Not in any way being able to speed up our path to beta.
5-minute warning, folks. And I'm going to be looking for a nice question to end with. Let me see here. Sacrix asks, do you agree that no PvE has not really helped speed up the game, when you still need to make guards, monsters for deaths, and quests now for campaigns, something which was stated at Kickstarter?
So you got something, part of that right, but the big picture you're wrong on. So, your opening statement was, do you agree that not having PvE still hasn't sped up beta because of guards and things like that? The guards and the other things that you talked about aren't delaying beta at all. And long term, even if we have guards and the depths and other things, it's still going to speed up the delivery of beta 2 through live. Because this is when, if you look at the development of most MMOs, it's not the beginning that slows you down. It's as you get further and deeper into the project, as you're making and have to make all that content. We still won't have to have all that content. So the lack of PvE certainly hasn't, helped the delivery of the game, but it hasn't hurt it in any way. The the NPCs and things like that. Look, one way or the other, whether we had NPCs in there or bots in there, we always said we had to have things in the world. Whether it's, nice prancing little animals that you hit over the head, and even though they're defenseless, harmless things, because you use them in crafting, or, guards, or townspeople to make the world feel a little more alive. So all of that was initially planned. And again, the big savings, huge savings, will come over the course of beta. Because, again, and this is true for just about every MMO, there's always going to be an exception. As you're moving through beta, all that PvE takes time. It did certainly in Warhammer. And then it takes even more time, potentially, to iterate on it, to make changes, to get it right. So the big savings from it was never intended to come before beta. The big savings is what we'll be doing during the beta period, which, unlike in other games, and this was true also for Camelot to a certain degree, in that we won't have to spend a lot of time in beta focusing on that. We just won't. It's not part of any plans we have. So, yeah, the decision not to have PvE was the right one. The only way we could even possibly have done it would have been in a very non-quest oriented way, which, could have certainly attracted more people, but it also would have taken more time and not been a really great solution. It just would have been more like, hey, this is very simple PvE, incredibly simple PvE, which really would have amounted just to grinding, or maybe, a simpler and less painful method, which I don't know if that would have been advantageous for us either then or certainly not now. So, yeah, good question. I think that's a great one to wrap up on.
Okay. Well, there is another good one. If
all right,
you have
go
one
ahead.
You, but if
sure.
not, that's okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Big Pop 82 asks, random here, but are you a fan of history, or what specifically made you interested in this Vikings, Albions, and Celts type of lore and dynamic?
Sure.
What about that setting attracts you?
Sure. Okay, so yes, history, big fan. Mythology, big fan. Arthurian legends, big fan. But really, just what attracted me was back while Mythic Entertainment was, prior to getting the money for that game, we were on the verge of shutting down. Thanks to these letters come up every so often in my life. EA. When they bought the AOL Games channel, that kind of almost put Mythic out of business right away, because our games, we already had a game up there, and we had multiple games almost ready to go up there, and we were expecting to make money off those games. And at that time, people were making a lot of money off their games, and we had, again, multiple games ready to go. Well, actually, we had 2 games up there, at the time. And so then EA decided, because, online games were going to be the thing then, to buy the channel. Unfortunately, that, as the saying goes, threw everything into a cocked hat, and we were screwed. I mean, totally screwed. So, I had 2 paths to go down. One path was convincing EA to keep at least one of our games up there and get some money from them, which we did. Wasn't a lot, but enough to keep the studio going. We went into turtle mode, which meant huge pay cuts for myself, the other founder, Robert Denton, one of the guys as well, who offered to take a pay cut because he had money. He very graciously did that. We gave him more stock in return, which ended up working out really nicely for him. And then the other path was to convince certain people to make an MMO. I tried in the past for a different MMO and had no success. And so I just started thinking about what game we should do. What could excite people? What sort of, world really could entice someone to back our MMO? And, as Janet could tell you, I came out of the shower shouting that I got it. I figured it out. And that's where the idea for, Dark Age of Camelot came from. I was just racking my brain knowing, going through everything I knew about history, about mythology, about religions, just trying to come up with something that I thought could work. And the idea of, what happened to Arthur's realm after Arthur died just seemed perfect. And that's really how it came about. I mean, especially at the time, because, back 16 years ago, I was even more deeply immersed in fantasy and science fiction than I am now, simply because I had more time. So, with my memory, which is pretty good, even for someone who's been, in the industry as long as I have, I just kept going through it all. And I was running scenario and scenario in my head, thinking of anything I had read. I had books that I was going through, looking at legends, trying to figure out what the hell we could do that would be different and interesting. And that's where the idea for Camelot came from. It was simply, I thought it was the perfect, concept to build a game around, and an RVR game around, and using, as I've told people before, the model that the brilliant guys at Kesmai Studios had come up with for their Air Warrior game, which was 3 countries doing battle. I said it just fit perfectly. And so when I marched into the office that day, I thought I had come up with the idea that was going to save the studio, because I'm like, I know this, I know I can sell this, I know I can convince people that this is going to work. And when I shared it with certain people in the office, especially one who shall not be named, he vetoed it. He was like, no, I don't like it. I don't think this will be good. Other people, fortunately at Mythic, agreed with me, and as I've related before, I made a deal with that person that if I could convince the team, and especially one of the guys who was a longtime friend of his, that my idea was better than other ideas I had, that he would go along with it and support it. I did. I went to everyone and I talked them all into it. And so that's where, Camelot, which later became, Dark Age of Camelot. I forget my original name for it. It wasn't particularly inspiring.
Was it Darkish?
It was Darkish Age of Camelot, that's right. But yeah, that's where it came from. It was without a doubt the single best idea I had for a game in my life. And, it wasn't easy to get the money, nor was it easy, down the road to get the distribution for it. But it worked out great. We made a fabulous game. The team that made the game was a fabulous team. They really were. Very hardworking, very dedicated to creating something special for all of us. And, thanks to them, we delivered something that is still running today. So, yeah, long story. Thanks for the question. But that's,
really,
exactly how, the world of Camelot came about. And, it was a very good day when I had that idea, and an even better day when back in 2001 we launched, and we saw just not only how well we did financially, but how happy we made people who were playing that game. And so that was a very good year. That was an extremely good year. So, having said that, I want to thank all of you for your support. I want to thank you for your patience, as always. I hope you've enjoyed yesterday's announcement and today's follow-up to it. It's a huge win for all of our backers. It's a huge win for the studio. And, I look forward to what is going to be a very exciting year. There is just no two ways about it. There are, fortunately, which is a nice thing to say, no outstanding technical, issues. We still have a couple things that, we're working on, but nothing like, oh my God, rehabilitation. We have the funding we need to hire quickly. We have the funding we need to hire in other areas that we would not have hired in, some of which will actually go to a better experience for the backers and not just programmers, and artists. So, it's just an incredibly good time to be a supporter of ours. And again, because of you, we're in this position. And as we've thanked you before, both here and in the updates with words and sometimes deeds, we're going to continue the whole deed thing because that's important. So having said all that, I want to wish you all a very, good and safe weekend. Have fun, and we'll see you next week.
And keep an eye out for our update.
Oh, yes, and it's just a top 10-ish today. So, no user stories.
See you later.